Good morning. Today we're in downtown Phnom Penh in Cambodia, and in this video we're going to be looking at some Cambodian history, a dark period of Cambodian history, because today we are at S-21. So while I walk to the entrance of S-21, this museum sits a bit of history, 4 years between 1975 and 1979, where the Khmer Rouge took power of what is now modern-day Cambodia by executing people of their own country, people who didn't conform to the communist regime, anyone that posed a threat to Pol Pot, the party's leader. And in this video we're going to look at the atrocities that were committed by Pol Pot and his people. Okay, let's go.
Hello.
Hello, one please.
You need tour guide or headset?
Okay, so we're inside S-21 right now. It's 8 in the morning, so we're one of the first people in here. I'm hoping we can get a good view of the cells. Already we have like what looks like a doorway entry. Look at this. It's probably the nicest thing we're going to see in this whole video, so enjoy it while you can. Alright, so I'll give you a little overview of this facility here. You can pause the video and then you get an idea of what you're about to see, I guess. So S-21, if anyone's been to Auschwitz before in Poland, it could be comparable, maybe, if you want to compare them. But people would come here, get processed, get their photo taken and put into cells for torture, interrogation. And if you've done something bad, spoke against the regime at the time, the regime of Pol Pot, then you will probably be ending up in this place. Not only you, but your family as well. Guilty by association. Nobody is spared. So let's have a look in some of these rooms. Perhaps see some of the cells where people have been held. Perhaps see some of the torture rooms. And yes, I guess we'll go from there. Okay, wow, look at this. So this building was once a high school, and this was before 1975 when Pol Pot came in. But what Pol Pot did, he removed everyone out of the capital city of Phnom Penh. He forced them into rural areas to do farming. Pol Pot's vision wasn't to make profit, it was to force his people into the simple life. They had quotas that they must meet, they must plant and cultivate as much crop as possible. He saw people who did agriculture, very honest people, noble people. He wasn't competing for a world power. He wasn't trying to make Cambodia #1 in the world. In his eye, he wanted to make Cambodia a pure nation of purists, people who just blindly support the regime. And people who didn't agree with that were people with certain intelligence, engineers, people, political opponents, for example, soldiers, and everyone with half a brain. But just to think, this would be a high school where kids would be studying. There'll be a blackboard with chalk. People learning, kids coming here every day just to get an education, turned into almost, well, a prisoner camp. Even in our school, back in the UK, in our elementary school, we had this same exact set of bars, so you can see some remnants left behind from which it was a school before people were forced here, brutally tortured, killed and interrogated. Let's see if we can see some of the information here.
Yeah, you look at this gallows.
Look at the gallows there, look. Wow. So you can see the big frame here, look there. It almost looks like they just dunked into these pots here. So I'm going to go over the text quite quickly. You can pause the video and yes, go from there. But here sits today what looks like a recreation of someone that is being tortured, pressed for information. Maybe they know things. And Pol Pot is quite, well, he believed a lot of people were in the CIA. So there was a lot of torturing involved, trying to extract information. You could say he was quite a paranoid man. But yeah, this is endless. I'll just do a little tour of the outside, then we'll go in some of the rooms. I want to try and avoid some of the tour guides. Yeah, it looks like almost like a quad or a pavilion type place. I can't believe we still have some of this playground equipment. It looks like it's kind of been a little restored, so perhaps it's not original, but you get the idea, right? Wow, it's absolutely amazing. Let's go in one of these processing rooms. So if you've been watching our channel, we've done videos on Auschwitz where we went in similar rooms, just like this one. So you can see some of the victims here that were either processed. These look more like processing pictures here because they have numbers around their neck. Look. So these, like I said before, these are people with some sort of education or skilled trade, like a very good mental game, you might say. Engineers, people like that. Perhaps even doctors. But if you want to be safe from the regime of Pol Pot, then you need to have family that didn't speak out. You need to be quite highly skilled in manual labor. If you can produce crops and have the strength to work the fields, the energy to work the fields, and also, most importantly, supporting the regime, blindly supporting the regime. So at the end of the Vietnam War, many countries were quite weak at the cost of war. The Vietnam War ended in 1975, and Pol Pot saw that as an opportunity to come in, take power, claim power over what was then Cambodia. Not too many people resisted. He promised change. He promised things will be different. He promised less corruption. You couldn't really find many people opposing Pol Pot or the Khmer Rouge when they claimed power in 1975. At 1975, well, things slowly changed. Like I said, the city was emptied. People were forced into the countryside, rural areas. People were taken captive, prisoners. Pol Pot had pretty much only one country supporting them, and that was China. And it was quite amazing to see that China was still supporting them when a lot of the mass killings were exposed on national news by Western news agencies. So you can see some of these people are kids, look. And this is what I said before, guilty by association. Maybe his parent said something really bad. Whoa, we need to scoop up the whole family, all the kids and everything. Maybe the kids know something that their parents spoke. They heard a bit of conversation. Whoa, they don't get spared by the regime. They will get tortured just like everybody else. Pol Pot took no prisoners. Wow. But these, you can see this guy right here, almost looks like Russian text on there. These were also, well, people from other countries. And I think we probably even have some Americans here as well. Before Pol Pot came into power, the Cambodian government, well, a little unstable, like I said, they had some US backing and support, easily toppled by the Khmer Rouge at the time. But Pol Pot's regime only lasted a mere 4 years, from 75 to 79. I don't know if I can really upload much more beyond this. In fact, I might have to blur this one out, so I might carry on. Wow. And these, they almost look like temporary stretchers, look, as though they just photographed the body and dumped it in the killing fields. These look like the rooms we were in just slightly earlier. And it's almost like the way they process the images, like a catalogue of people. There's some old paintings here, but also it looks very familiar, right? Almost looks like modern day Poland down in Auschwitz, tall fences. Wow. Some letters here, or at least notes. Some years there. Wow, it's just walls and walls of people. And if we look down here, look at that. So this is the agricultural stuff I was talking about. Look, everyone was forced into manual labor to plant crops. But they didn't really understand when they provided quotas for how many crops were going to be produced. They didn't take into account the quality of the soil, the weather. You know, you cannot meet quotas if the soil is just unworkable. Look how dry that is. Here it looks like they're attending to paddy fields, perhaps growing rice. There's even kids, look, working the fields there. And look, rows and rows of people. Brutal conditions, look, no shoes. Wow, he looks like he's just permanently crying, look, in that photo. Limited headwear. You have to remember it's probably 34 degrees like it is today. And we were out in the sun the other day for just 30 minutes in 34 degrees doing a little bit of exercise. I went for a run and I was almost done. I can't imagine how brutal it would have been. Okay, let's get out of that room. So you can just see the grand scale of these rooms, just endless photos of victims. Some looking quite confident in the face of, wow, in the face of what's to come. It's quite unbelievable. And even today you're going to see some of these things in some of the rooms, most of which has remained unchanged since. You can even see the dirt on the walls, which has probably been there for the last 45, 50 years when most of this took place. These are the killing fields, which you can find further south of the city, maybe a 20-minute car ride, or that probably makes it a 40-minute tuk-tuk ride, right? Here's the skulls, look, still blindfolded even today, with some sort of decomposed linen around the eyes of the skulls. And they form stupas with these, almost like when you go to the Paris catacombs, you see all the skulls put together, almost all the femurs put together as well in some cases. Almost decorative for some strange reason. But of course this is after they have extracted all the information and everything they could. I can't imagine much information was extracted. Oh, look at this. So 4 loops on one very thick piece of rebar. What do you think that is for? Perhaps 2 arms, 2 legs. These are some of the statues here. You can see a lot of the people who opposed the regime, perhaps later, when Pol Pot was finally captured by the Vietnamese in '79. It looks like a lot of people were angry about what happened, and rightly so. This one's missing a lot of facial features. But today, 4 heads sit here in a cage. Well, 4 busts. Look on the floor here, we can see a little loop, perhaps where someone was chained down, or at least perhaps a bed or something like that. Yeah, I can't really look at these with the camera, but perhaps I can blur it out. This one is what we saw outside, do you remember? And these are some more images of the killing fields. One problem Hitler had in Germany was, what do you do with thousands of bodies? Wow. You know, it's not as easy as you think it is to dispose of what some people estimate 1/5 of the Cambodian population, even up to potentially 1/3. The number will probably never truly be known. Most people vary between those two figures. I imagine they were trying to burn some of the bodies, incinerating them, even breaking them down, like I say, between bones and skulls. Absolutely insane, the full scale of this operation. And some people say Pol Pot is even worse than Hitler. Maybe not due to the amount of people, which could be around 2 million, but 2 million of his own people. Okay, well, that was very depressing, and that's just the bottom floor right there. Who knows what could have happened in these upper floors? I imagine more cells, more detention centers, more torture rooms, perhaps. So let's go over here. So there is an audio guide available. It's quite hard to do while I'm filming, so I'm just sort of relying on the knowledge I already have, and with what text is available, we can sort of piece everything together. But I think I know enough to give you an idea of the story without being too bloated. And then if you want to learn more, I guess you can watch some videos on YouTube or something. But it's very hard to do an audio guide while filming and talking. I'm not that talented. So it looks like we have some buildings here. Here, this looks like off limits. It's sort of like an extension of the same theme we saw before here, but it's all barbed wired off. We can't get in, but it certainly looks like quite a big school, perhaps like in high school. It's not really, almost like elementary school sized, at least not in the countries where I'm from. So you can see a little sign here. It says prisoners detained in this room, and it will list some of the prisoners there. Right now it looks like we can't get in, but if we look through here, we might be able to get a little peek by up the brightness. Okay, so it looks like, according to that, 3, 6, 9, perhaps 10 or 12 people were in that one tiny room. So, well, the regime knew how long these people would last. Oh, it looks like we can't get in, never mind. The regime knew how long these people would last, so really a comfort, a bed, a big meal probably wasn't really a major concern. It's just temporary, right? So it looks like they have documentation from processing. You can see the years here. It's quite hard to see. The gender here, the age. So you see the age here is quite high. So these are people with information that could be interrogated, perhaps based on their age, but they could also be skilled personnel that were almost like a threat to the regime. They didn't want anybody with any intelligence potentially trying to form an uprising. So this is one of the, what looks like it could be one of the rare survivors, which was very, very, very few people. But you have to imagine when the Vietnamese people came here and captured Pol Pot, well, they're not going to be capturing, well, when they come into these cells, they're not going to be really finding dead people, which is probably why a lot of these will say survivor on them, but it doesn't discount the fact that there were probably thousands, millions in the killing fields already. So in here we have the rebar that we saw before in the other room, with one hoop here and a crude little chain which leads to an ammo box. Perhaps the ammo box was their storage box or something like that. That could be water, that could be food. But yeah, very small. This is 6 feet tall, 182 centimeters is the top of the cell. There would be a door on here, sort of thing. And yeah, it almost looks like just crude bricks and mortar. It's not even straight, look. So imagine if this was a school before, how rapidly they threw up these cells. Look at that. Wow. And I'm sure they got people to build these cells for them. I really doubt the Khmer Rouge would do that. They would probably get their own people, I'm sure, almost certain, really. A prisoner detained in these cells, yes, so very good record keeping, and it looks like when the Vietnamese came, they got a lot of those records. If you contrast to Auschwitz, well, the Nazis were burning documentation rapidly. Imagine all those years of being in power. They're rapidly burning everything to try and disguise all the evidence. Perhaps here they took them more by surprise. When the Vietnamese came here and arrived and overthrew the government, they found some interesting things. People tied to the shackles, tied to beds. And they knew things were going on. It was widely reported, but the scale of what happened and seeing that in person is sometimes a very different thing. Wow. But you will get survivor stories. Obviously, you have all the news reporting it, mainly in the Western media. You know, the US just pulled out of Vietnam. This is going to be quite a hot topic internationally, especially when some crazy leader is killing their own people, and what looks like China is supporting them and providing them military aid and funding. It's going to cause quite a big global concern, right? So this is one of the original blackboards of the school. It's almost like you can still see some of the chalk in there. I don't know if that's original, but certainly this does look very original there, how the board is still sort of hung off these almost like coat hanger pieces there. Wow, look at that. And imagine that, here's your blackboard here, the kids would be here on tables, learning, getting an education, and now sits, wow, an empty jail cell for its own people of Cambodia. It's absolutely insane, right? There's a little hole down there as well. Wow. Absolutely insane. What's in this room? Oh, it actually looks like we can go upstairs, so I think it's going to be hard to film this whole place on just one video, but what we're going to find is a lot of the rooms are going to start repeating. But I think what we're going to see up here is probably much of the same thing. Wow, look at this. Oh, wow. These perhaps could be interrogation rooms. Let's have a look. You can smell the wood. It smells like a sauna. You know when you go to a sauna and the wood heats up? It's that exact smell. The height of these, again, 182 centimeters, 6 feet. It's a little taller inside. Yeah, these are just wooden rooms. You have to imagine how hot this would heat up. Obviously, there's probably no fan back then. And you have all of these bodies in this room. Even adding to the heat of this along with the wood, it would be absolutely brutal. And when this is closed, wow, look.
This is where they keep the toilet.
Just a little food hole. Perhaps it's just more cells. They look more like prison cells, to be honest. But it's just endless. Look at this. Wow, it just keeps going and going and going. And there's just blocks and blocks of this. So you see these doors here, how a lot of the mortar, concrete is missing. I imagine there could be bars or some sort of reinforced door here, which was probably almost pried off its hinges. If this was wood, you wouldn't really see this too much, although I could be wrong, but for something like a jail cell, you would expect really enforced doors like that, which is probably why it looks like this today. This almost looks like a double room, but it has a tile flooring, which could mean it could be a shower, perhaps. And certainly there is some crude plumbing here, but it would explain the hole down there. Wow. Let's get out of here. Okay, well, you get the idea. 3 floors of absolute madness. We're gonna work our way around the area a little more, see what else we can see, but I think we've covered, let's do 1 more floor, just see what's at the top. Sometimes they put different offices up here, admin stuff, but I'm probably gonna think it's more jail cells, to be honest. Let's have a look. Well, it looks like just an empty room. Could be an admin office. There are some photos here which have been put down. Wow, look at this. So, while we walk around this top unit, let me talk about some of the things that happened after 1979. After 1979, well, Pol Pot was captured by the Vietnamese. Pol Pot hated the Vietnamese. He hated the very idea of the Vietnamese people. So while he forced all of his people into the countryside, tending the fields, planting crops, cultivating, well, he was also fighting with the Vietnamese, torturing Vietnamese villages along the borders for 2 reasons. Well, he really hated the Vietnamese, and also for border tensions. Well, he wanted some of his land back. If you know the history of Cambodia, well, the Kingdom of Cambodia was quite big. But borders were shifted, land was claimed. And even now in 2026, there's a war with Thailand over borders. Historically, you could say a lot of that land of what was then Siam, Thailand, belonged to indeed Cambodia. A lot of its history sits there, and that forms a hot topic of contention even today. I see these brackets in the wall here. This looks like it could be a blackboard for learning. It's certainly quite central in the middle of the room here. And I see quite a lot of brackets. Could be a long blackboard here. This is probably a classroom, just like all the other buildings. I don't know if it was used by the regime for prisoners. Probably, as they executed them in their millions. I'm sure they could use all the space they wanted or needed. Here's an overview of the outside now. But yeah, that seems to be it in this building. It almost looks like a high school that I went to in the UK, just very Spartan, very bland. You know, sort of serves its purpose, but nothing decorative about it. So yeah, Pol Pot hated everything Vietnamese. He was always pushing tensions at the border, burning villages. And it was quite interesting because if Pol Pot of Cambodia is fighting Vietnam, but China was supporting both of them during the Vietnam War, then why is China supporting Cambodia now but not Vietnam? It's very confusing, isn't it? So during the Vietnam War, well, you had the Soviet army, the mighty Soviet army, and China supporting, well, Ho Chi Minh, spreading communism. But after the Vietnam War, well, the Soviets and the Chinese had a different idea of what the ultimate communist party would look like, or at least the regime. So they ended up fighting a little bit. And ultimately, well, Vietnam decided more on the Soviets have modern machinery, they know what they're doing. Whereas Cambodia, well, China, no, China, Chairman Mao knows it all. And this sort of divided it even more. You had these 2 huge superpowers coming out of, well, what was then the Vietnam War. US defeated, sent packing. And it almost felt like, 5-10 years later, everything suddenly changed. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. Let's see if we can have a look into some of these buildings here. Looks like there's some tools in here. Oh no, wait, what a surprise. More people detained in these rooms. Let's see. Okay, let's see if we can get into... Let's start in this room. Okay. So, when I talked about processing, it almost looks like we have some stories, look, of people, what perhaps lives they led before they came here. It tells you how they found the information, look. She wrote lots of confessions under torture. So when they were tortured, it's almost like they wrote perhaps a diary of their lives or something like this. Here we go. Yeah, this guy from New Zealand. Look, I mentioned this earlier. Like I say, it wasn't just locals. Look, supposed members of the CIA. Paranoia. Maybe he was correct. Maybe it wasn't paranoia, but there was reason to believe because some of these torture methods. Look at that. And that one over there. Wow. This almost looks like an incinerator. It's probably not because it has a little faucet down here. Look at that. Absolutely huge. Look at this. Little torture devices. Wow, look at that. Oof, look at the chest. It's insane, right? Let's see if we can get in the other room. Almost looks coffin-like, doesn't it? Wow. This almost looks like someone's destroyed some of the temples or something like that. Wow. Yeah, look, even then, look, you can see the shackles that we saw before with the rebar and the loop. It's very eerie seeing the same things we've just seen in some of these old photos. Wow. It's endless. It's absolutely endless. These look like female prisoners right here, look. Oh, well, female and male, I guess they just grouped them that way. Okay, we might have to be a little cautious, perhaps, here. These look like they could be ribs, look. Some bones here. And inside here, well, we have all the skulls. Look at that. This looks like the killing fields. So once they've got all the confession, they know nothing else. They've probably got their family lined up behind them. Well, there you go, back to the back of the head, into a pit. Wow. And these are even more skulls, look, on show here. Endless skulls. And you will find these in the killing fields as well, south of the city. Endless skulls. And well, what to say? There's a huge pit up here in this photo. Absolutely insane. So where were we at with the story? So we talked about China, Russia, the two superpowers. So yeah, China was pretty much the only one backing Cambodia. Well, that ultimately ended because Vietnam invaded Cambodia. They overthrew Pol Pot. They rescued the surviving prisoners of the regime. Saw people tied up, tortured. You know, the true scale of the operation. You always hear things, but you never really know the full story until, well, you're here, you know, and it gets reported more. More photos circulate the media, video and things like that, and we can truly understand what really happened here. And the same with Auschwitz as well. But Pol Pot was captured, and he actually lived until 1998, which is unbelievable. Somewhere between the Thailand and the Cambodian border. I think even today he sits in like an unmarked grave, or at least nothing anyone will look twice at. Talking to locals, I couldn't find anyone that supports him even today, even through historical reasons, respect reasons, nothing. I couldn't find one person. Perhaps this is a memorial to all the people here. Wow. Today it sits eerily peaceful. You can hear birds cheeping, durians growing on the trees, people driving by on their motorcycles and cars like nothing happened. It's a very weird, eerie feeling. But back then, imagine all the screams you would hear. All the people on the plaques you saw outside these buildings were inside, 3 floors high, 3 floors high, 3 floors high. Imagine the shouts, the screams, the anguish. Whew. Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna move over to sort of where we started. We've done this whole block here. We've done the whole block here. I'm gonna see if there's anything else over here, but it's certainly by YouTube standards it's a long video, but by the standards of showing you what really happened here, if you don't have the opportunity to come here yourself, then certainly the video is very short and doesn't cover the full scale of everything, but I hope I tried my best to portray what really happened with as much detail as possible and without an audio guide. Wow. Okay, so we're just moving over to the start here. So this is the main sort of square we were before. I rapidly went through because I didn't know how big this this old school was. Wow. So let's just see if we can get up the stairs here. I think we can. So we're going to go up there. That's the shackle room where we were before. So let's see if we can get up. Okay. Yeah, same design as before. Look, our little bland Spartan handrail going up. Wow. If you were a kid growing up in the 80s or 90s, then, well, I mean, this is normal school. We had concrete stairs just like this. Very normal. Staff only, it seems. But you see the layout is door, 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 door. Perhaps they're doing restoration, I'm not sure, but they wouldn't let us up the stairs unless there was something up here, so let's have a look. But there's a lot of things people always forget. When the Vietnamese came in '79, that still puts us 4 decades until today. What happens is people can come in here, graffiti things, damage things. So this graffiti is probably before this turned into a museum, but after the era of Pol Pot himself. So you do see things like that, and it's almost like a capsule in time. Okay, there is a couple more rooms over here. We can see like an overview there. Look, some coconuts there. I'm really trying to pull the positive out of here. All we have is coconuts and durians. Okay, so we have a room here. Okay, here we go. Look, these are the archives. So you can see some of the letters, perhaps letters of confession, diaries and things like that. Trying to find the true story. Wow. And I believe a couple of people wrote survivors books as well. I'm not sure if you can purchase them here, but certainly if you're able to get a hold of them, they are fantastic read. So it will sort of tell you what happened from a survivor's perspective. Perhaps like the Diary of Anne Frank or something like that. Okay, wow, this looks like some old, almost like Soviet or Chinese era style. Like just say made in the USA. Look how wrong I am. Wow. Film reader. I mean, those are handheld USB things now, aren't they? The film readers. And even then we don't really use them anymore. This is an enlarger, look, from Japan. I love seeing old equipment like this. It's quite spectacular how minimal they are now. These are some of the I like how they say, oh, I thought it said pets, but it says pets. So we've got the Rattus rentus, got the cockroach, spiders. So these are some of the things they're going to see in the cells here. Wow. Yeah, so this looks more like a museum of what they've managed to collect here. It looks like some of the prison attire here. So you have the hat. Maybe that has your name in there. Wow, look at this. Almost looks like a cheese fork there. But yeah, I mean, if you imagine there's thousands of prisoners, the guards aren't all going to know your name. So it looks like it's been stitched on the inside there. I'm sure there's a few identifiers to tell you, you know, the name of the prisoner. Oh, wow. Yeah, this looks more like a lot of documentation, perhaps of what I've already shared and everything. So it's like a mini museum upstairs. But I can still smell that sauna smell, you know, from the wood. Oof. Ah, here we go, look. So this is almost like the blackboard we saw before, almost the same shape and size, like this with the border. These are some of the desks of the school which sat here before. And in the folder, well, let's have a look. Wow. It looks like perhaps, oh, here we go. Yeah, an account, I guess, of a guy and his family. Wow. Absolutely brutal. And who could think that someone would do that to their own people? Your ideology of communism in your own mind is so strong that you're willing to force almost 2 million of your own people into, well, death. Not only death would be easy. Death, torture, interrogation. Day after day after day of the worry of what might happen. But we know that prisoners talk, and we know that prisoners said, you're probably never getting out of here ever. So knowing you're going to face certain doom while being interrogated, tortured, and ultimately ending up in the killing fields. I'm sure they spoke to people who tended the killing fields. Perhaps some of the prisoners worked the fields. I'm sure everybody was communicating what's going on. When your life is on the line, you talk, you know. I'm sure communication was quite strong between prisoners themselves. So without a doubt that most of them were certain what that ultimate fate would be and where that would lie. But wow, this is S-21. And if the code name is S-21, well, what does that tell you? I'm sure 21 is not a random number. I'm sure it's indexed for a reason. Absolutely insane. Well, if I see anything else, I'll let you know. But in the meantime, I'm going to take some pictures before my battery dies. I think we've been going on a long one with this, but I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in a second. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, you can see a lady here with her baby right here. So people were pregnant in this, well, I guess you could call it a facility, right? What do you even call a place like this? People were pregnant. Often the baby was killed. Almost always the baby was killed. Nothing was spared in this regime. Yeah, absolutely crazy, right? So along with more things I missed, when everyone was processed, they would be measured. Right here, look, you can tell how high they are. That will get added into their bio. And over here, pretty creepy, is a lady that's probably just given birth here. You see the instrument there. And then right in front, well, here it still sits even today. Look at that. Quite hard to see though with the reflection. Here's how they would have showered, look. It's pretty much a hose pipe through the window. Do as much as you can. Probably fill your water jug, but it looks like you're also shackled, so there might not be an opportunity. This looks like sleeping. You can still see the chalkboard right here. It is an artist's depiction. Over here it looks like we have a lady that's just given birth. Look, she has to give her baby up to the guards here. And almost always they were killed as well. I don't know if we can show that, but it is an artist's depiction, so maybe it's okay. And here what looks like, it almost looks like gardening tools, right? At a first glance. You come over here, wow, look, instruments of torture. So you can learn about those here, look. Yeah, look, various lengths of wire here. It almost looks like they're doubled up as gardening tools and torture tools. Maybe 2 in 1 perhaps. Because you see like a pickaxe here, a little shovel. Wow. And here's another one, look, these are the torture tools again. Again, artist depiction. See, they're cutting it looks like they're cutting the fingers, but they're not, they're removing the fingernails. And that hurts like a bugger, look at that. And here you can kind of see some of those things even today. Look, the similar loop that we saw in the other rooms. insane, isn't it? Yeah, so this one looks like a waterboarding device. Look there. So it looks like your ankles are strapped in here, your head is perhaps over here, and then, well, they just hose your head there, force you into confession. And this looks like the same jug, look. They fill this up with water here, comes out here on your head, and that's, wow, that's how it works. Yeah, and looking at that one here, wow, guess what was in there? Yeah. Ow. Yeah, so behind me right now is one of the survivors of this very place. Actually, I think two of them. I think I mentioned it earlier, in fact. So he's not here right now. But usually he's in like a wheelchair inside here. But there's another guy sitting over here in his little chair. He wrote a book, but you can learn about his life here in this very place. It's very eerie, in fact. But if you want to learn about it, I think they both wrote books. You can learn about their stories, how they got here, what it was like, maybe the people they spoke to. It's probably all in here. Wow. But I think that adds a lot, you know. You walk around, you can actually talk and interact with some of the survivors. There's interpreters there as well. And sadly, it's still part of the modern era where you're able to do that. Perhaps they were in their 20s when they came here. Of course, 40, almost 50 years ago, they're still going to be alive. So it's one of those rare opportunities you can still interact with one of the survivors, something you can't really do that easily anymore during World War II. Wow. So this is probably the last video I'm making because my battery is almost dead. Absolutely crazy. 4 blocks, 3 floors tall, and this is just one of the many places where many of these atrocities were taking place. Absolutely insane. If you're ever in the area, I highly recommend you check it out. It's just something you cannot see anywhere else, and it's both, well, beautiful today, but a very large, eerie reminder of the past. Wow. Can't believe it. Alright guys, well, I'll see you in the next one coming soon. Take care from this, well, abandoned school / madhouse.